Well, the lockdown started when the night shelter would have closed anyway for the end of the winter season. We were due to finish the winter season for 2019 to 20 at the end of March. So we didn't have to make any difficult decisions really about whether to close early or to stay open longer, because it was all decided for us. The government asked all local councils to move people out of night shelters in shared room accommodation into individual rooms. And that happened for most of our guests, though not all, because some of them the council weren't able to help because they didn't meet their own criteria, so they gave them out of area. And there were others who were moved into the emergency accommodation but were evicted quite quickly. So my first experience of lockdown was a mixed bag of taking food parcels around to people who were sleeping rough, who weren't being able to be helped by other agencies, and taking other food parcels to people who were in tenancies. That was sort of what life was like really. Going down the river to a sort of junkyard next to where the fishing boats come in, where a couple had built a shack out of pallets, bought them fish and chips, got various churches to help with food parcels for them, let them use the phone, and just tried to give them a bit of pastoral support because they were quite downcast really. And then there were a couple of people in flats who me and some people from churches round about were taking daily food parcels to from the Berkeley Trust who were doing the cooking. And I was effectively the support worker for them. So that involved sitting in back gardens, sorting out housing benefit applications, getting people signed up for universal credit. Most of the partner agencies we were working with were working from home or telephone only. And for a time I seemed to be the only person apart from the police actually going out and about in Lynn, meeting with people outside at a distance, being cautious. I mean, it's nearly the end of July now and the day centre still hasn't opened, so we're in our new building at St John's House, which has no showers and has a huge old Victorian bathtub with only cold water, but I have somebody who's been coming around to have a bath in it 2 or 3 times a week because there's nothing else available, and I wash and dry his clothes and put a cream on the ulcers on his feet that he can't reach very well, and other things you don't need to know about. But it's symptomatic really of the way people can get left behind, even when partner agencies with the best of intentions are trying to do their best for people and people fall through the cracks. During the week after we closed, we'd had a couple of people staying with us who were out of area, which effectively means that the local council, according to the rules set by them by the government, have no duty of care towards them. And one of them, a man in his 60s, very frail, but frail physically, but had always been a sort of very dominant personality among his peers. I found him weeping on the doorstep outside night shelter, our old building, one evening, and he wouldn't move. He said, "This is a house of God, and I know I belong here, and I'd rather sit on the doorstep here than sit on the street anywhere else." And it was moving and also incredibly frustrating because there was nothing I could do to help him. But the main challenge at the moment really is that this is a vicarage with some very large bedrooms. It's not a travel lodge with a lot of very small ones, which means from a Covid point of view we won't be able to have as many people as we'd like. Before Covid happened, when I looked at this house last January, I thought we could sleep 30 people in here. 25% of the nights last winter we were full, so it was obvious last winter that we needed a new home, and we've got it, but now we are having difficulties because we may not be able to allow people to share rooms unless they're a couple. Well, we've got 6 bedrooms, and our question is if we can subdivide them safely. Public health have been very helpful, sort of thinking around the issues. Obviously Covid isn't going to last forever, but the worry at the moment is that we'll be limited in how many people we can help, and more people will be needing a night shelter because people are losing their jobs, and because families break up and people get evicted. So we could be looking at a very hard winter. I mean, the people who are on the street at the moment, they've got nowhere to go. And writing directly to the housing officer who's looking after them at the Borough Council, it's not that they don't know about them, there just is nowhere. And it's July, you know, it rains sometimes, but it's not that cold. But when we get to November and December, it's going to be a real problem, because if I'm turning someone away and it's snowing, or asking another member of staff to, how are we going to feed if they're found dead in the morning? You know, what's the solution? I think it'd be really a great winter if we got to a stage where we could have about 12 to 15 people in the building with social distancing and had done it safely. But really, the aims of the night shelter as a charity are to stop people dying on the streets. And there's a sense it doesn't really matter how that's achieved, as long as people are kept safe. And the greatest worry is that we're not going to be able to for everybody. And funding comes into that as well, because a lot of places that we would have applied to funding for have had to concentrate it on the immediate problems of COVID, and the grants just aren't there to apply for. Or the focus in the homelessness sector is on move on housing, something called Housing First, which basically means giving somebody a tenancy with wraparound support, which is all absolutely wonderful when it works, but it's not housing now, it's not housing tonight. It's really for what we're trying to do. Your prayers especially, which are the best gift anybody can give to anybody else, is to pray for them. But also the support of congregations, the carol services, the harvest suppers. As much as we're allowed this year, it's all appreciated, and knowing that we have friends and that our homeless guests have friends, because they know that you support them as well. They know because I tell them, and they know because they see it in the papers. And if you think that nobody loves you and nobody cares about you, and nobody will help, and you come to a night shelter where you know that everything that you're given has been provided out of love by somebody else, that makes a huge difference.